Hi everyone! So in this video I thought I'd put a few of the best comments of Douglas Murray. A guy that says it as it is, no nonsense, straight to the point attitude. A man a lot of people say should be the Prime Minister of the UK. Now, that would be interesting. I shall do the video in such a way so that you have a bit of the story and then Douglas's reply to bring the context to a meaning. Just before we get on with the clips, if you haven't already, please subscribe as I do like doing these videos, and press the like button as this helps with the YouTube algorithms. Oh, and don't forget to comment as I do enjoy reading them. Thank you.
Douglas, we've seen an outpouring of grief and gratitude after the Queen's death, but also it's revealed just how twisted and divorced from reality some leftist publications have become, none more so than the New York Times. You've written about the paper's hostility against Britain. What's driving the type of coverage we've been seeing from the New York Times?
Well, I'm afraid that the New York Times, I've written about this quite a number of times in recent years, since 2016 has just had an unbelievable animus against Great Britain. It seems not to have been able to forgive the populace for the democratic vote that meant that we voted for Brexit. And the paper, which used to be the paper of record in the United States and used to be a very highly regarded publication, made an incredibly frivolous set of assumptions. It assumed that Brexit was the same thing as Donald Trump. It assumed that Brexit was somehow against the international liberal ideas of the New York Times. And so for the last 6 years, it's run a campaign of defamation, slander, and libel against the United Kingdom. And a quite incredible campaign. I've documented it. It's just, sometimes it's just ludicrous, like its culinary section will claim that people in Britain are basically still living on gruel and mutton. Sometimes they get just basic facts wrong, or they just get a gob left winger to say, for instance, that Britain's a racist country. Usually, by the way, an ethnic minority British person who claims that Britain is racist, yet weirdly is still in it. And then this week, I think the paper hit what is just a new low even for it. Within hours of the news of the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the newspaper decided to immediately run an incredibly hostile piece by a left-wing non-entity academic talking about colonialism, empire, and the crimes of colonialism, and that Elizabeth II had much to answer for, and this sort of thing. They didn't even leave it 24 hours before doing this. And we've seen in the days since other left-wing media join in. CNN, MSNBC, they've all decided to display not just animus against the Crown and against Great Britain and the Commonwealth, they've also decided to display their extraordinary ignorance of history. I mean, they seem to believe that, for instance, Elizabeth II oversaw the empire. They seem to believe the British royal family made its wealth from colonialism. They seem to think that the colonial era was so terrible that the Commonwealth countries must have been strong-armed into joining the Commonwealth. They've totally ignored the fact, of course, that every Commonwealth country's leadership, quite understandably, has been expressing their mourning and grief for the loss of Elizabeth II. And why would that be if she was such a tyrannical ruler? Only because that's in the head of these very twisted, spiteful, hateful people like the New York Times. It's quite amazing to watch and very disturbing, because it's a reminder, if I can say so, that, you know, institutions like the New York Times used to be great institutions, and they've been destroyed by hatred. And that's the exact opposite of what Queen Elizabeth showed in her own lifetime, which is that you build institutions with love and loyalty. And that's something that the CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, they wouldn't understand the language we were speaking in there.
You said it's the historical ignorance, which is astonishing, particularly when it comes from people you'd think would have a grasp of history. They're academics, they're members of the media, the working media. You mentioned some of the other outlets, CNN, The View on the ABC. Let's just have a look at some of these examples.
You know, this idea of how the royal family, how this family grapples with its history and legacy of colonialism, of slavery, of the potential paying of reparations is a really important one. And I think that King Charles understands that his job is, yes, as a monarch, but he is also an anchor for this Commonwealth.
She said, a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating.
It was a thieving, raping, genocidal
but I think
empire.
I'm lost for words. Step in.
First of all, if the British Empire had been genocidal, the people in question wouldn't be alive. They wouldn't be speaking. If the British Empire had been a genocidal empire, it would have tried to kill all of the people under its rule. It did no such thing. There wouldn't be any people in the countries that were under British rule if the British Empire had been genocidal. Genocidal is the intent to wipe out an entire people. The British Empire never tried to do that anywhere. That's the first thing. The second thing is that absolute moron we just saw first from CNN talking about reparations. She has no idea in her own racist hatred that Britain paid reparations 250 years ago. We paid reparations throughout the 19th century. We paid reparations for slavery by abolishing it under George III and then policing the high seas to ensure that slavery not only was outlawed across the British territories, but was outlawed across the high seas. We paid higher goods in Britain throughout the 19th century, higher prices in goods, because we wouldn't deal in slaving countries such as the United States of America. And so when people talk about reparations today, it demonstrates not just their own basically give me cash mentality, which is all that you see here, but also the incredible ignorance. They don't know that Britain paid down any moral and financial debt it ever had 200 years ago under very distant predecessors of Queen Elizabeth II. And these people are not just tin-rattling money makers. They're also just constantly showing their unbelievable ignorance of everything that happened before the day they were born.
This next video clip we see Piers Morgan with Abdul Wahid regarding his thoughts on what happened on October the 7th, where Wahid started to question whether the atrocities actually took place. Douglas Murray, as always, says it as it is and challenges the lies of the pro-Palestinian.
Do you think Hamas are a terror group?
I believe it's a resistance organisation.
Okay. Do you think what they did on October the 7th was a terror attack?
I believe that if civilians got killed on that day, it is appalling. It is appalling.
You're a doctor, man.
It is appalling.
You're a doctor in the NHS. What do you mean if? 1,200 people got massacred. And Hamas has since publicly warned that it will not hesitate to repeat the attacks again.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك إحنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة. إنه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة.
But to deny that it was a terror attack at all is quite frankly poisonous delusion. And I think it's entirely valid to question whether this man's views are compatible with being an NHS doctor in a publicly funded health service. There's been a backlash from some Muslim followers of myself on Twitter, mostly because I suggested Dr. Wahid wants women to be oppressed. Would you like Sharia law in this country? Last time I'm going to ask you.
If Sharia law,
yes or no?
If Sharia law means upholding family values, means looking after the poor.
Means no gays, no feminists, i.e. women who get above themselves,
that's your
right?
caricature. No, that's your
I know what Sharia law wants for women.
Why do so many women become Muslim these days? Why do
Because they
so
want to
many
be
women in the
oppressed.
West?
Is that what you're going to tell me?
No.
Well, I said that in the specific context of Dr. Wahid's desire for Sharia law in this country and his defence of a tweet from one of the members of his own organisation calling feminists and gay people filth. It's important to understand that context. I don't suggest for a moment that women who want to convert to Islam should do so for any other than perfectly good reasons. I have no problem with Islam as a religion or with Muslims. I have a problem, though, with people who endorse and support terrorism or who are blatantly homophobic or who are blatantly misogynist. Let me be crystal clear again. I'm anti-terrorists and I'm anti those who support terrorists. Well, joining me now from Tel Aviv is Douglas Murray, the Associate Editor of The Spectator, the co-founder of the Muslim Debate Initiative, Abdullah Al-Andalusi, and Dr. Izzeldin Abuleish, the Canadian-Palestinian medical doctor, who's joined me again in the studio. And great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Let me start with you, if I may, Dr. Abuleish. When you saw that interview, what was your response to the fact that it's an NHS doctor working and living in this country who was saying those things?
It's important. I am coming, I heard it. I heard many of your interviews. Jihad, the word jihad. My presence here is jihad. When I'm coming to meet with you to advocate for my Palestinian people and for saving lives of the people is jihad. And this is the highest level of jihad. The resistance against someone who is invading you, this is the lowest level of jihad. But jihad, when I'm traveling, when I am going to any place, even someone who is dying because of far away from his home is a kind of jihad. When we are fasting, when we are working, work is a jihad. And that's the most important. We need to understand it, not to take it out of the context in the limited understanding of it. When I am invaded with a disease, COVID, what do? I have to resist the COVID. And that's when we face cancer disease, any cancer.
With respect, you would not categorize October the 7th as a resistance.
It's, I condemn the killing of any innocent human being. And for me, I was born, my daughters were killed before October 7th.
Yes, I know.
I was born as a Palestinian refugee before October 7th. My parents were refugees before 48. Yes. They were born in Palestine. So the history didn't start. The world is not created October 7th. That's what we need. And we are today
but
at 12. It's important. But let me continue. Let me continue, please.
Right.
Today is the 12th of December. Today is the 12th of December where we have more than 23 Palestinians are killed. More than 45,000 are severely wounded. Even the damage in the Gaza Strip, as Borrell, the representative of Foreign Affairs in the European Union, it's far beyond the damage in Germany for 6 years. In 2 months, more than that. So even, how
that's
many...
not true, actually.
Why?
No, there was far...
He said that.
Who said that?
Borrell, the representative of the European Union, the Foreign Affairs.
Yeah, but far more people died in World War II than have died in this war.
The
structural damage,
the destruction.
Well, there certainly would have been more damage in Germany in World War II.
He mentioned that himself.
Well, that won't be factually accurate. I do not consider Israel to be a terrorist organisation.
The killing of my daughters.
I think here's a question we have to ask ourselves, which is, since you have defended Israel's operation in Gaza as self-defense.
Don't misquote me. I've defended...
So you don't say it's part of their self-defense?
No, let me clarify.
Okay.
I've defended Israel's right to defend itself, right?
Right.
In fact, they have a duty to its civilians after Hamas's repeated threats since October the 7th to repeat it, to defend the civilians.
So is the war in Gaza not self-defense, or is it according
let me just clarify my position so you know, right?
Yeah.
However, I have repeatedly questioned the proportionality of Israel's response, as indeed their greatest allies,
but not the response itself.
Doing.
But not the response itself, though.
I think they're perfectly entitled to go and take out Hamas.
So may I continue my question then?
Yes.
Ask you. So since, as I repeat, since you have justified their response, maybe not how they've carried it out exactly, but you justify their response as self-defense.
Their right to defend themselves by taking out the terrorists who committed that atrocity, yes.
Okay. And presumably you refuse to call Israel, and you have refused when you've been asked to call Israel a terrorist organisation, government, or the IDF a terrorist organisation.
Well, the difference is here we are. Well, hang on. In London,
no. Let me finish my question, please. I have a question for you.
I must clarify.
Let me finish my question.
You're making some statements that are a bit misleading.
Sure.
This country considers Hamas to be a prescribed terror group. They do not consider Israel to be a terrorist organisation, and nor do I. So that's the position.
But I'm not asking you. The United States consider
I'm not asking the British government. I'm asking you, Piers.
I don't think
the British government isn't here.
I do not think they're a terrorist organisation.
Now let me finish my question, if I can ask the question as well, right, for us to discuss. So considering that you have justified the operation that Israel initiate a self-defense, and that you refuse to call Israel a terrorist organization or a terrorist government, despite the fact that almost as many Palestinians, Gazans, have died under Israel's precision bombing than as Londoners have died during the whole year of the Blitz under German bombing, which wasn't precision bombing. And yet you still say that, well, Israel isn't a terrorist organization. I think the question we should be asking is, should you be suspended? Is it responsible to have a person with your views speaking to the public when you clearly refuse to condemn that which needs to be condemned, which was worse than the London Blitz? Those that
perfectly reasonable,
with precision weapons, and the Germans didn't even have precision weapons.
Perfectly reasonable question.
Yes.
And you've asked me it on my show.
Yes.
The fact you're here and able to ask that, I think, is evidence that I'm prepared to listen to people who will look me in the eye and ask me difficult questions.
Well, you didn't know I was going to say that, but anyway, yes.
That's fine, but that's fine. You're perfectly entitled to it.
Yeah.
We believe in uncensored free speech here.
Yeah.
But let me ask you the question then, which I asked...
You're not answering my question, but you haven't answered it.
Well, I have. I said I don't think they're a terrorist organisation.
Despite the fact that they've killed almost as many as Germans
You've
did
asked me a question.
when they bombed London under the Blitz for 1 year with non-precision bombs.
I have given you an unequivocal answer. Now let me ask you if you can give me one.
Yes.
Do you believe Hamas are a terror organisation?
Okay, and I'd like to ask you, what does that mean?
Just answer my question.
Well, I need clarification.
Well, this country has prescribed them as a terror group. Do you think they are?
Are you the British government?
No, I'm asking you what you think.
Okay, so I want a clarification.
I gave you a simple, straight answer.
What does it mean?
No, you tell me.
I don't know. You're asking me a question. You asked
You don't think they are a terror group?
No, I want your definition of what is a terror group?
An act that commits acts of terror, a group that commits terror attacks, as they did on October the 7th.
So one that commits terror attack, all right, fine. So define terror.
Do you want to answer the question or not?
I do, but I just want clarification.
No, we all know what terrorism is.
Please, no, we're going to go somewhere with this. We're going to go somewhere with this, right?
Well, are you going to answer the question?
Yes, once I get your definition. What's a terror attack?
The definition is as is laid down in international law.
Which
is?
It's
committing an act of terror.
Which is?
Which is terrorism.
Are you asking questions you don't know the definition of?
Well, why don't you tell me what you think it is?
I don't know. You're asking the question.
You've no idea what terrorism is.
No, I want you to answer your question.
I would say massacring 1,200 people on October the 7th in the way Hamas did is an act of terror. Do you agree?
So killing civilians is an act of terror?
No, that's not what I said.
So then killing civilians
Committing
is not an act of terror?
on that scale is terrorism.
So killing civilians is not an act of terror?
You're not going to answer. Let me bring... Douglas, first of all, what was your reaction to this interview with an NHS doctor last night on this show?
Well, let me first of all say that it's necessary to clear quite a lot of things up because we've heard quite a lot of hogwash in the last few minutes. Firstly, your guest last night is a member of an extremist organisation, Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is banned in many countries, including in European countries. And it's also banned in many Muslim countries. It's banned in Pakistan, it's banned in Egypt, and that's because these Muslim governments recognise that it is an extremist group that has a revolutionary ideology that wants to replace government in Muslim countries as well as in... do you know... Germany.
One European country is banned in Douglas Murray. I'm not going to let you lie to the audience like you usually do. You're going to justify everything you say on this show, Douglas Murray. Right? So please, give me one country.
Germany.
It's not banned in Germany.
I just said
it's not banned in Germany.
You're not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening.
To the audience. Google it for yourself. You know, Hizb ut-Tahrir in Germany, really are they banned as an organisation?
Is this Mr. Al-Andalusi? Can I just check? Because I can't see you.
It is,
Is that him?
Yeah.
OK. This is a guy, he's of no significance, but he's a guy who I have seen in studios for years, spouting extreme Islamist rhetoric. Many years ago, he couldn't condemn the killing of the journalists at Charlie Hebdo. Last year, he wouldn't condemn the attempted murder of Salman Rushdie. Now he can't do this. He fails every single test. But let me get on to the question. I'm not going to engage... I'm not going to engage in a bun fight with this Islamist. Let me answer the question that Piers put to me before you try to interrupt again.
Only if you don't lie.
Let him answer, please.
First of all,
let him answer, please.
All right.
First of all, I'm not going to keep being talked over by this Islamist blowhard. Let me speak. First of all, your first guest treated us to the first bit of mouthwash this evening by claiming that the word jihad can mean absolutely anything. Nonsense. when a big bearded member of Hizb ut-Tahrir calls for jihad on the streets of London, then they are not calling for an interpersonal struggle with the nature of the divine. They are calling for violence. And anyone who can't recognise that should be questioned about their own motives. Secondly, we've just been treated to a monologue about casualty figures in Gaza. Where do these figures come from? I'll tell you where they come from. They come from Hamas. It's quite remarkable to me that 2 months after the October the 7th massacre, the Israelis still don't know the precise number of people murdered on October the 7th. There's a reason for that, because it takes time to work out massacres of that scale. One of the striking, you know, I just don't know if either of your guests are going to allow me a word in.
Because you are lying,
One of the
and
striking
even the numbers
things
from
about
Israel, from the IDF, which are not accredited.
No. You will,
These are your
it's
numbers.
really interesting hearing somebody who presents themselves as a moderate being a spokesperson for Hamas. So let me continue. They are Hamas figures. They are all provided by the ministries of Hamas, which is a prescribed terrorist organization. If you want to reel off Hamas figures, then be my guest, but you are not able to mislead the viewers of Piers' show by quoting Hamas figures at his viewers as if they are holy
I am not
writ.
quoting.
Third,
it's the Euromed.
we've been treated to this
the
nonsense.
United Nations.
We've been treated.
It's the international community organizations.
Where do you think they get the figures from? Where do you think they get the figures from? Thirdly, I will continue to speak if it kills you. Thirdly, World War II. It is nonsense that what has been happening in Gaza has, as you said in this endless list of fallacies, that there has been more bombing in Gaza, more deaths and destruction in Gaza than during World War II. Do you know anything about World War II?
Almost,
do you know anything about World War II?
In Dresden alone,
do you know anything about Dresden alone? Take one German city. The destruction was on a scale totally dissimilar to what has been happening in Gaza.
I'm taking London.
Very, very interested. I'm very interested, and I will, once again, I will finish this point, even if both of these boil hearts
let me ask Douglas one question.
No, it's
I
important
will
because he
finish the
mentioned it
point
in
I
one of his
wanted to make.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you both. Let me ask Douglas one question. Douglas, specifically about the doctor.
It is very important for your viewers to hear the following definition. The definition of terrorism is the deliberate targeting of innocent civilians. That is what Hamas specializes in. That is what Hamas did on October the 7th.
And that's what is happening in Gaza also.
Is what Israel is doing terrorism? No, for the following reason. And again, you can lie about this if you want, but do not expect not to be challenged about it. What the IDF is doing is the same manner of war as the British Army, the American Army, and all other armies in the civilized world. They target terrorists like Hamas, and there are civilian casualties. Yes, there are. But it is not the aim of the IDF, any more than it is of the British or American armies, to target civilians. And anyone who pretends otherwise is lying to the public watching.
All right, Douglas, final question before I go back to the two in the studio here. And it's specifically about the doctor that was on last night, whether he should be allowed to continue practicing as a GP when he identifies Hamas as a resistance group, wouldn't say that it committed an act of terror, said he didn't even believe that there had been a massacre, and was also quite blatantly homophobic, amongst other things. Well, he didn't actually. Douglas...
But not Douglas.
Let
me ask Douglas.
Said if.
No,
Douglas,
please.
Let me ask Douglas.
Douglas, the medical association. The medical association.
I will come both to.
The medical association is the one who is assigned to.
Fine. I'm asking Douglas what his view is.
Douglas. He's not a medical doctor.
I'm asking Douglas's opinion. Douglas.
Well, you don't seem to be much of an impartial observer of this, I have to say myself. I thought slightly highly of you before you started ranting as much as Mr. Al-Andalusi this evening. I'll tell you what I thought of it, Piers. I think our country has had enough of people like your guest last night. It's not just that he's in the NHS. Why is he in Britain? Why do we allow people in Britain to try to overthrow the state, who praise terrorism, members of extremist organizations? What has Britain got from this guy exactly? What benefit have we got from him? I mean, I wouldn't want to be an NHS patient going to him. I don't know if any Jews would particularly want to in Britain. I don't know if very many innocent people would want to go to this doctor. But my question is not just should he be able to practice. I want to know why our country of Britain has been such a soft touch for decades that we have Hamas leaders, terrorist spokespeople, Islamist sympathisers like your guest, Mr. Al-Andalusi, and now NHS doctors who are members of groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir that stand on the streets of London, call for jihad, call for Muslim armies to arise. I don't think our country benefits anything from these people. I think people like that should leave. We have no need of them.
And there you have it. What are your thoughts on this? As always, thanks for watching.